Schools Chancellor Richard Carranza being criticized for keeping parents, teachers, and students waiting. Anthony, thank you. All day before finally making the call to shut down the schools.
Public Advocate Jumaane Williams is one of those critics, and he joins us this morning to explain how this could have been handled differently. Good morning, Jumaane. Thank you so much for being here today with us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
All right, so you released a statement shortly after the decision was made saying there was no leadership present. You also said this is the worst dysfunction that the leadership of this mayor has provided. Tell us why you feel that way.
This is complete dysfunction. And I thought it was March because we're seeing the same thing we saw in March. We saw two executives bickering with each other, and they seem to have not learned the lesson. Now, this is not about just the 3% threshold. This is about the dysfunction when we have to do something that we knew may come at some time. Mm-hmm. And what we have now is hundreds of thousands of parents who found out 16 hours before the school day that they have to find childcare. Mm-hmm. We have pleaded with this administration to plan better months ago. And it's just, it's unbelievable, the lack of leadership coming from the Chancellor, the mayor, and the governor.
And the Chancellor saying just moments ago here on Pix 11 that he did warn families last week to start making those plans. So he was a little defensive, saying that he did give the warning. But I mean, you said 16 hours. That's not a heck of a lot of a time to get that child care figured out. You and I spoke last time about this plan that you have. Let me just ask you point blank. Do you think schools should be kept open despite the rising number of cases?
Well, we have to use science to guide that. There are some people who say 3%, some people who said 4%. I want to move past that because at some point this was going to happen. It shouldn't have been open to begin with. But at the point where we have to do it, you can't do it without a plan. And so you have to open what we've been pushing, the rec center, the regional enrichment center, particularly in the areas that need it the most, so that parents do have a place to put their children where they can learn remotely. The people who need the most help can get it. What we see now is a widening achievement gap. And what we see is the people who need the help the most not getting it. Mm-hmm. That is specifically the mayor's fault. And it's just so hard to watch in real time as a parent, myself, a stepchild in the school system, and as a public advocate who has been pleading, putting forth a plan that actually work based in science, guided in equity.
I want to get on to something that Jumaane, what you just said, that they shouldn't have opened in the first place. You've had this stance for quite some time now. Will we have been in a better position now, today, for this resurgence, had they not opened?
Of course they would have. You reported that 60,000 people don't even have iPads.
Right.
Doesn't even count the people who don't have internet service. We said just focus on making the remote learning the best it could be because everybody's going to have that, whether they use hybrid or not. They refused to. They swung open a system of 1.1 million students. Who does that? Both of these men are displaying now the worst possible type of leadership at the worst possible time. And it's so aggravating.
You know, I did ask the Chancellor this morning about thresholds. I wanted you to take a listen to what he had to say, and then I'll talk to you on the back end of it.
We're in active conversations about what should those metrics be. And again, when we set the 3%, it's not arbitrary. It was very conservative, but it was based on medical advice and medical experts. And again, I want to remind folks, when we were talking about coming back to in-person learning, it's a little bit ironic that some of the loudest voices around keep schools open were some of the loudest voices of don't open schools, don't bring everybody back. So again, there's never a perfect time for capturing what those metrics need to be. So we are continuously working with our medical experts, re-examining what is it that we're doing. Is it medically sound? Does it make sense?
So I wanted to know what the reopening plan looks like. What is the metric? 3%. Is it still 3%? Do you have any intel on that?
We don't. The one thing I do agree with is that some of the loudest voices have changed. But that's because, and I will say this, they have never done a good job of capturing what parents want and never provided a plan for that. And so what we need to be doing now is figuring out what that metric is. There's always going to be disagreement. But we have to have a plan of how you close and how you reopen. They have never had a plan that addressed the need, and they ignored everyone who did.
So a solid plan is better than a stop and start, is what you're saying.
Of course it is. We've been saying that for such a long time. We knew the chaos that would ensue by having to open schools, close schools. People don't know if the school's going to be open. Which zone am I in? We said have a plan, and we presented one. They ignored it every step of the way and now say We didn't know. No one could have anticipated.
Yeah, and to your point about low-income families, there's an article today in the New York Post that those with money can now move their kids over to private education because they can pay for it, you know, in the Catholic diocese where it costs money to send their kids to school. So 2,000 new applications, but some folks don't have that luxury, which is the very issue that we're talking about here. Jumaane Williams, always
They don't even have
appreciate your time.
tablets. Yeah. All right, Jumaane, thank you so much. We appreciate you always joining us here on the show.